Hi, I'm Nancy McCocken, and welcome to Living Karma Yoga. Catherine Austin Woolley asked me to take over some of her responsibilities when she moved to Fresno, California last October with her husband. One of these responsibilities is hosting this program, Living Karma Yoga, which is a celebration of all that the yoga world and the yoga techniques have to offer, from asana, which is posture, which is what yoga is mostly known for, physical conditioning and postures and stretching and strengthening, as well as meditation and pranayama, which is the science of breath, mudras, mantras, lifestyle, travel, cooking, and so very much more to help you take yoga off your mat, because that's really where it's most important. And so that you can live a life of ease and prosperity and joy and fulfillment that you so truly deserve. Yoga teaches us that at our base, we're perfectly calm and joyful, and that like an onion skin, yoga techniques help to peel everything off so that we can get down to our essence, which is pure enjoyment. My guests today are here because they actually took their yoga off the mat and into, I don't know why I'm crying, but this moved me, into an immersion or an intensive 5.5-month yoga program. So first we have Sarah Williams here. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Nancy.
And then we have Kate Durek.
Hi.
And we have Holly Rotter.
Hi.
And we have Sharon, I've forgotten your last name now.
Kelly.
Kelly, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I told them I might forget their first names because sometimes when I get nervous, my brain just leaves. So first of all, we're going to be discussing how this immersion has helped them understand what yoga is a little bit more deeply and how it may have changed their lives. So Sarah, you're up first. This was the second time that you took an immersion. So before you took it the first time, what was it that you expected from this course?
2 years ago, when I first became interested in at that time it was called teacher training, my goal was to learn asana. I had been practicing for around 5 years at that point, with increasing frequency, and my personality type was I wanted to nail the asana. I wanted to nail the poses, and through the teacher training that we went through 2 years ago, I learned, it just opened up a whole world. I learned, as you were saying, what yoga is, what it is for the breathing, for who I am, the philosophy, the history, how rich the entire culture is. And it changed me dramatically. And when I saw that it was offered again, I became greedy and thankful and signed up again and was swept away by learning even more and bringing myself deeper.
So, and by the time that the other three of you enrolled in the course, we changed the name to Living a Fulfilled Life because we realized, as Sarah expressed, that it's a little bit more than just asana. And we already knew that, but we were focusing on how the process of deepening the experience can change your life. And when we come to weekly drop-in classes, we learn technique, we learn a little bit of philosophy, we sometimes learn some breathing practices, but it's really difficult to piece things together in any coherent fashion, which means that you almost have to take something a little bit more extensive or actually focus on a course the way you might at a college course. So with the title, Living a Fulfilled Life, Kate, what drew you or what did you expect when you signed up?
Well, it came to me at the perfect time in my life. I had been looking and thinking about doing an intensive training, really around teacher training, for about a year. And at the time I was working full time, and it was really hard to fit that kind of thing in my schedule. And then all of a sudden I'd heard more about Karma Yoga, the studio, the atmosphere there, the people there, kind of the culture at the studio, and I learned that you were offering this program, Living a Fulfilled Life, which of course gives us teacher training, but also the more broad spectrum, really, as Sarah said, that I was interested in the whole arc of everything from the origin, the history, the philosophies, the different types of yoga, the different limbs of yoga, well beyond the asana, and I was taken with the instructors, with you and Catherine and Lynn, and the duration, because I was interested in a longer period of time so that I could absorb. We joke that every weekend that we met, I would get home and I would order more books and, research more and more, because I was fascinated with all that I was learning and how that was impacting my life on a day-to-day basis. And that's really what I was looking for, is kind of taking not only my yoga to the next level, but my life to the next level. And I definitely gained that and more through the immersion.
And you actually, you said it came at a good time, and could you explain that a little bit more?
I had been going through a lot of changes in my life, physical, emotional, etc. And I just was, I was, call it a midlife break or whatever, and there was a lot of work I'd been doing on myself inwardly, and I just had this innate sense that a program like this would tap into the various things that I had already been working on and working with. And I mean, meditation, mindfulness, movement are kind of my 3 core things, and I just, again, gained so much, not only knowledge and technique and practices through the program, but just really learned a lot more about myself and what I want to do with my life for part 2 and all of that. So it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Okay. Nolly, your turn. What did you expect?
Excuse me. It's interesting because I was around when it was called the teacher training.
Right.
And I thought, I've been doing yoga since before there were yoga mats. And
whoops, that dates you.
That's all right. That's all right.
Me too, actually. Wood floor, hello.
That's all right. That's all right. And seeing the people coming in and out of Karma Yoga, coming in and leaving happier. Everybody left happier. And I would see people coming in for their first time, a little frazzled sometimes, and then seeing them down the road maybe a couple months, and they were completely different. And I thought, they got that in that room. And I would love to be able to give somebody that. I have that in me. I know I have it in me. And I know I can give it away. But I need to channel it. I need direction on how to do that properly. So that was part of it. That was part of it. And the immersion word mixed into it gave me an idea that, this isn't just a boot camp. This isn't McYoga. This is the real deal. So that word actually attracted me.
Awesome. That's
the immersion
good to know.
part, not just the teacher training, but the immersion.
Okay, Sharon, how about you?
And I love that. It is the immersion. That was really what I was looking for. After practicing yoga for years, starting out not being able to touch my toes even, but going deeper, and how it was mentally and in so many other ways, because I dabbled in yoga when I was very young and then went away for years and got back into it for health issues. But then I just loved yoga. I loved the people I met and the calmness that it brought. And I came to Karma several years ago and was able to take a trip with Karma, and I just kind of stayed in touch. But when I read about the immersion and the description, I just knew that that was really the one that I was looking for. And it was a great way to spend fall, winter, and come into spring. It was just
beautiful. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm going to do is back up a little bit, because you all have very interesting histories, okay? So in introducing you, I introduced your names, but not what you do or what your life's like. So Sarah, will you explain a little bit?
I am self-employed. I work tremendous amount of hours. In fact, when we were talking during the introduction, I thought, I forgot to mention, I never intended to be a yoga teacher, nor will I possibly ever be a yoga teacher. But my job keeps me too busy to do that. What the Karma Yoga immersion has done is you realize that you are a teacher regardless. It has,
So tell me about what you do for a living.
Oh, I do sales, retail sales and forecasting.
Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, because everybody's different. And when we come up here talking about yoga, it's assumed that we're all kind of yoga nerds to begin with, you know,
Yeah.
and then it becomes somewhat homogenous, you know, oh, those are just yoga people.
Yeah.
But you all have such different stories and different backgrounds that I thought it might be interesting for
interesting,
the
yeah.
audience to know that you all have lives.
Yeah.
And a little bit about what those lives are like, too.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
So, and Kate, can you?
So I spent, from right out of college, 25 years in the nonprofit world as management, fundraiser, and I've worked with all kinds of organizations in different sectors of the nonprofit arena. I've raised close to $200 million in my career collectively, and I now want to take a new path. I'm taking a new path with starting my own business called Mind, Body, Edge, and my goal is to take the things I mentioned, mindfulness, meditation, and movement, out to people and help in the corporate setting, in schools, with youth, and potentially healthcare institutions and those kinds of things. So I have a lot of business background, and I really am trying to, while I was passionate about all the things that I did before, I really feel this opportunity to take a new direction and take these things that have impacted my life so dramatically, you know, from stress and anxiety and overwhelming, you know, responsibility, to be able to, these tools have taught me how to live a more balanced and peaceful life. It's far from perfect, but you know, it's I see all that's out there in terms of stress, and we're all overworked, and you know, I just feel like there's so much that people, anybody, myself, starting with myself, that I've benefited so much in my day-to-day life while I was in that nonprofit world, and it's been invaluable to me. I'm married. I have no children. I have aging parents. And, you know, so I'm able to take care of them now and have time to be a little bit flexible with my schedule and,
Okay, beautiful.
and do that.
And Holly, you have probably the most colorful life here.
I have the most colorful shirt. You're confused.
I'm continually fascinated by the stories of things that you've done and where you've been. And Holly currently works for us as a we call them desk goddesses. She checks people in. She makes sure that everything is running smoothly in the studio.
So about me,
Yep.
I come from a radio background, mostly production and writing, a little on air, and was more always behind the scenes kind of a person. 2 local sports radio stations, and most of my work was up in Lansing. Very deadline oriented, temperamental, egos. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just I needed a break from it. I really, really needed to go inward a little bit, a lot more, and it just seemed like the next logical step
Yeah. Okay.
for me.
Yes. Good. And you have 2 children?
I have 2 boys,
Yeah.
15 and 16,
Yeah.
and a husband.
And that keeps you busy.
Yes, it keeps me busy. Yeah.
Sharon.
Well, my story might parallel Holly's a little bit. I have 2 sons also. They're older, and I did the whole PTO gig, the whole,
Right.
you know, school thing, very volunteering all the time, very focused on that. My background is family business, established in 1912 as an insurance agency.
Wow.
So I worked that basically on and off my whole life,
Right.
starting at 13, stuffing envelopes and taking buses
I
to
re-
Detroit. And when I did that, I used to take the bus to Detroit. I discovered the Krishnas down there at their temple in
Okay.
Detroit when I was a teenager.
Did you dance with them?
I went down there and did all that. And one time my dad came by to find out what was going on at that place, and he said to me, you know, those are nice people, which was so funny because I'm talking back in the olden days, you know, 20, 30 years
Right.
ago. So anyway, so my kids grew up, and I found yoga along the way, and but my background is just all around here. Went to school here and found
Okay.
yoga here the whole time.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, beautiful. And you've all alluded to how immersing yourself in history and philosophy and practices have changed your lives. Can you be descriptive? And I'm going to start with you, Sharon, or how this has made an impact over these last couple months, because I know you've had probably the most challenges of anybody who's been enrolled in the class. Can you explain a little bit
Right.
to the audience?
Yes.
Would you mind sharing?
No, I don't mind at all. It has been a challenging period of time for me in the past few months. And during this time, this immersion could not have been at a better time. If it was 6 months ago, or I'm still looking forward to it, it taught me the coping skills for a very ill father who we just lost a few days ago, and a husband who has some struggles health-wise that's been going on for a while now, and it continues. And so what I've learned so much in my struggles is just how to deal with things, how to be calm, to stay calm and handle things, I like to say, with grace and not out of sorts or with loose ends running around. And it just, the calmness is for me to cross things off the list, get things done, and not just be so out of sorts that nothing ever gets
And
done.
Overwhelmed by the enormity of what you had to experience.
Exactly. I think I'm making up new words just describing this. But just things that were thrown at me unexpectedly, and running out of town for a bit, and having to miss a few classes, which was horrible because I loved my group, and I'd sit there and think, I know what they're doing right now. And the group of us gals was wonderful.
And you have mentioned that that was a support for you, and that's what you
was
look forward to come to as an island almost
Right.
from the
We're a
difficulties
group
that you're
forever
having.
now. We have our own little Facebook page, so that's it.
And videos, and
Yes.
videos. So Kate, you mentioned a little bit about how this has changed your life. Would you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be really candid. I have had health struggles of my own since childhood, and frankly, had developed some unhealthy coping mechanisms through the years, and I always felt very disconnected from my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it, but I didn't know how to fix it.
Right.
Not for lack of trying, but and when I first found yoga years ago, the greatest blessing was that over a fair amount of time, it was yoga that was the first thing. I've always been very athletic and physically fit and whatnot, but it was the yoga that allowed me to start connecting my mind and my body.
Okay.
And learning body acceptance and learning, that my body is a gift, and that through yoga and through breath work and through going inward, self-acceptance and self-love, and it's been a real saving grace for me in my life. And the more that I got involved in this immersion, it's only added to that.
Okay. So good. Sarah?
I came to yoga 7 years ago because I quit smoking, and I thought I was going to lose my mind, and I was, heavier than I am now, and but truly would get on the mat and could not stop crying. And what I've learned through, and was so afraid and so internally focused, and through being on the mat, even that you go inside and that you can, as Holly was saying, you walk out and you feel happy, and you think, was it something that one of the instructors, we have an instructor, Suzanne, who tells wonderful stories of the lineage of the Hindu, of the gods and goddesses, and was it another that taught you what a mudra was, and you went through class going mudra, 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 I had to look up that word, but you felt it, I felt a weight lift from me, and as I said, the years progressed, it was, as Kate was saying, maybe I just never understood my own spiritual connection. It's like it's there, but you do the yoga, and all of a sudden you're
like
happy.
a flower
It is.
opening up,
You blossom.
access it.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's not like an on-off switch. It's progressive thing.
And it's not quite like the endorphin high that you get from running or from lifting weights and pumping iron in those in aerobics and kind of thing. It's a little bit more, I'm thinking it's a little more subtle than that.
correct.
The way it comes on,
Right.
but every bit is profound.
Right. And I've tried, I mean, I'm not very good at aerobics because I don't know left from right, but I've tried, I've tried weightlifting, I've tried everything, and I still do cardio. It's the yoga is integrative. I mean,
Right, okay. Yeah. And Holly, what was the most important, I'm going to throw you another question, kind of a curve.
Okay.
What was the most interesting for you? Because I remember sometimes, and I'm thinking like the philosophical things you've mentioned, and I might just let you talk forever, but you mentioned philosophy and how that was really exciting to you, and I know that you've mentioned how it's changed your life. So can you talk about those both a little bit?
Sure. I don't know where to start.
Well, we'll start with whatever pops into your mind.
Okay, we'll start with the philosophy. For me, the reading was very helpful. You know, aside from noticing, I've always been a watcher. Aside from watching and just learning from watching, going underneath, you know, the surface and reading these books. You know, you have a book and it's this small stack of papers, but inside is just this whole new world. It's this whole thought process of one person. And sometimes it incorporates other people's thought processes, which I have come to adapt. The philosophies are very relevant today.
And how so?
How so? Well, the yamas, we'll say.
Yamas are called restraints, and they're moral principles. So
Right, and there are certain ones
ethical principles.
that resonate more and more deeply with me, such as, well, satya. You know, I don't know all their names in Sanskrit, but, you know, the truthfulness is, it's not just telling the truth. It's being truthful with yourself and being honest with what makes you happy and what doesn't make you happy, and trying to really, it's okay to shed away the things
And how has that
don't make
changed
you
you?
happy.
If you don't mind sharing.
How has that changed me? I've become less reactionary, for starters. I like to think I have. I've noticed certain situations where I know I would have reacted differently. I walk away more. I've learned that no is a complete sentence,
Yep.
which is a big one for me. And self-care. Self-care is a big thing. The airlines have it right, you know, just to put it in layman's terms. Put your oxygen mask on first before you can help anybody else. And I feel like this is my oxygen mask.
That's beautiful. That's a really beautiful
Thank you.
thing. And I'm looking at the teleprompter, and we've run out of time.
Wow.
But I know, I know. It's hardly any time at all. And it seems like forever, like a 28-minute program, and then you get into it, and it's just not enough time to really get under the surface. But does anybody have anything to add to what we've talked about that just strikes them to? Yes.
I would just say, you know, there were moments throughout the course when we were learning the philosophies and that there's so much commonality. I kept having aha moments that, oh my gosh, this is so universal.
Right.
You know, when there were moments where I was like, okay, is this crossing over into religion? And it wasn't. It was just universal life lessons and ways to treat ourselves better, treat the world around us, like, I just found it to be something I wish for everyone.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Yeah.
It's true. And also the variety of our teachers, because we were lucky. We had you and Catherine and Lynn and Natalie. So everybody brought their expertise that was wonderful.
And it's a really interesting thing because the four of us are very different people, and to have that be integrated and have you experience that kind of integration, I think is really, really wonderful. And I had some other thought as you were saying that, and I think what the main thing that I've experienced as a teacher and assisting all of you and being reminded of the value of yoga, not just as a physical practice and as physical conditioning, but as a lifetime discipline. Yoga means union, and we're united to the truth of ourselves, to a spiritual dimension that our culture doesn't necessarily perceive. Even if we're going to church or we're going to synagogue or whatever, there's a spiritual dimension that many of us leave when we walk out the door. But with yoga, especially with the immersion, it's much more integrated. It's part of the cell tissue, and it controls or directs our lives, I think, in a way that's organic. And people talk to me and they'll say, "Oh, you're so calm," and I'm thinking, I'm not by nature a calm or a patient person, but even when I'm not experiencing those things, it's something that I exude, and that's part of the yoga imprinting and the changing, I think, is what's happened. Would you agree with that?
For sure.
And strength.
Yes.
I think I've got strength that I didn't have before. People keep telling me that, and I'm like, I don't know where it came from, but I do know where it came from.
It came from the yoga.
Yep.
And I need to get my cues again because it's time for me to close the program. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you for inviting
yeah,
us.
Sharon, Holly, Kate, and Sarah. So, and thank you all for coming and for attending. And if you'd like to know more about Karma Yoga, please visit us at www.karmayoga.net. You can look us up on the internet. You can find our schedule. You can find Living Karma Yoga. And thank you. Namaste. Namaste.
May the